I believe above the storm, the smallest praise will still be heard. I believe that someone in the great somewhere is every time I hear a newborn baby cry, or touch a leaf, or see the sky, then I know
Howdy, I'm Porter Garner, class of 1979, President and CEO of the Association of Former Students. I have long believed that of all of Texas A&M's many grand traditions, Aggie muster is indeed our most sacred tradition. I further believe that this one tradition, perhaps more than any other, best showcases what makes Texas A&M and Texas Aggies so very special. Today, Aggies will gather in hundreds of locations around the world, in groups large and small, and answer here for friends and for family. Each of those musters will include a roll call, the reading of a partial list of names of Aggies we have lost since our previous muster. Names that are known in each local area, names that are known to the people attending each local muster. Our worldwide muster roll call is inclusive of all names called at each of our local musters and comprise every name on this year's roll of deceased Aggies. We are deeply grateful to the almost 50 volunteers joining us this morning in the Clayton W. Williams Jr. Alumni Center on the campus of Texas A&M University to help us honor the 1,324 Aggies on the 2024 worldwide muster roll call. Thank you as well to the Aggies joining us online and on this most sacred of Aggie days. I thank you for joining. As we call the worldwide roll call, and as comrades answer here, we together perpetuate our noble legacy of muster. We show the world the power of the Aggie spirit and the strength of the Aggie network. And we uphold our solemn commitment to mark our fellow Aggies present in our hearts.
Roll call for the absent by Dr. John Ashton, class of 1906. In many lands and climes this April day, proud sons of Texas A&M unite. Our loyalty to country, school we pay, and seal our pact with bond of common might. We live again those happy days of yore, on campus, field, in classrooms, hall at drill. Fond memory brings a sigh, but nothing more. Now we are men, and life is one great thrill. On Fortress Isle 82 years ago today, a group of gallant Aggies, led by Moore, held simple rights. To us doth say, the spirit shall prevail, or cannons roar. They thought of home and all we hold most dear. Where are they now, those boys we knew so well? Ask of the winds, let smile repress a tear. Think only of their glory when they fill. Corregidor, forevermore a hallowed name to countless sons of Texans yet unborn. Symbolic like it stands for deathless fame, a shrine sublime till resurrection morn. Softly call the muster, let comrades answer here. Their spirit hovers round us as if to bring us cheer. Mark them present in our hearts. We'll meet some other day. There is no death, but life eternal for heroes such as they.
The 2024 worldwide roll call for the absent comprises 1,324 names of Aggies whose deaths were reported to the Association of Former Students since the previous muster. Some of those deaths happened more than a year ago, but the passing was not previously reported, so the name has not been called previously at any other muster. The worldwide roll call for the absent will proceed from oldest class year to the youngest. However, names added to this roll after April 16th are grouped together near the end, followed by the names of some honored faculty, staff, and friends of Texas A&M. Names that are initially called incorrectly will be called again in a correction segment at the end. For help finding a specific name in this roll call, please visit tx.ag/2024 directory.
Thomas Bluford Hughes, class of 1920.
Here.
Joseph Grigsby Smythe III, class of 1935.
Here.
Edwin Davis Hall, Jr., class of 1939.
Here.
William D. McMahon, class of 1940.
Here.
Russell Hardage, class of 1941.
Here.
Judd W. Clayton, class of 1942.
Here.
Mark Gideon Good, Jr., class of 1942.
Here.
Alfred George Herget, Jr., class of 1942.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Lee Jones, class of 1942.
Here.
Percy L. Parsons, class of 1942.
Here.
Fred Alderson Smitham, class of 1942.
Here.
Colonel Walter E. Trantham, Jr., class of 1942.
Here.
Donald Leon Williams, class of 1942.
Here.
Chris C. Edwards, class of 1943.
Here.
Brigadier General Charles Van L. Elia, class of 1943.
Here.
Dr. Norman Ricketts Hall, class of 1943.
Here.
William B. Harrison, Jr., class of 1943.
Here.
William C. Hall, class of 1944.
Here.
Harold R. Mayer, class of 1944.
Here.
Roy Rife Priest, Jr., class of 1944.
Here.
Robert W. Shaw, class of 1944.
Here.
John H. Atterbury, Jr., class of 1945.
Here.
Robert Fulton Barton, class of 1945.
Here.
Joe P. Gideons, class of 1945.
Here.
Gail Davis Jones, class of 1945.
Here.
Orrin G. Kirkpatrick, class of 1945.
Here.
William Pitts Norvell, class of 1945.
Here.
H. George Jacquin, class of 1946.
Here.
Lewis Maynard Landa, Jr., Class of 1946.
Here.
Joel Richard Lander, Class of 1946.
Here.
Ambrose Lee Lythe, Jr., Class of 1946.
Here.
Colonel John W. Oliver, Jr., Class of 1946.
Here.
William Frank Smiley, Class of 1946.
Here.
Dr. Albert W. Blackstock, Class of 1947.
Here.
William T. Cobb, Class of 1947.
Here.
James Benjamin Crawley, Class of 1947.
Here.
Paul C. Fleming, Class of 1947.
Here.
Shelby Sutherland King, Class of 1947.
Here.
Jack Lee Ward, Class of 1947.
Here.
Marshall W. Amos, Jr., Class of 1948.
Here.
James Arthur Cato, Class of 1948.
Here.
Owen Clyde Cecil, Class of 1948.
Here.
Faisy Fandy, Class of 1948.
Here.
Donald Eads Commendo, Class of 1948.
Here.
Robert L. Peterson, Class of 1948.
Here.
William Albert Potter, Class of 1948.
Here.
Bernard F. Siphon, Class of 1948.
Here.
Dr. Donald Eugene Williams, Class of 1948.
Here.
Louis Edward Youngblood, Class of 1948.
Here.
William T. Carpenter, Class of 1949.
Here.
John Jenkins DeShazo, Jr., Class of 1949.
Here.
Harris C. Garrett, Class of 1949.
Here.
Stoddard B. Gerald, Class of 1949.
Here.
John T. Godley, Sr., Class of 1949.
Here.
Joseph Leonard Hammer, Class of 1949.
Here.
Clyde B. Kitchens, Jr., Class of 1949.
Here.
Jack K. Lee, Class of 1949.
Here.
Dr. Thomas William Lyles, Class of 1949.
Here.
Matthew E. McAtee, Class of 1949.
Here.
Joseph Tatum Moore, Jr., Class of 1949.
Here.
Jerry Nemec, Class of 1949.
Here.
Joe B. Royce, Class of 1949.
Here.
Anthony Luke Scamardo, Class of 1949.
Here.
Martin Edward Vavra, Class of 1949.
Here.
Thomas H. Watley, Class of 1949.
Here.
Fred Clifton Arend, Class of 1950.
Here.
The Honorable William Jackson Alexander, Class of 1950.
Here.
James Stanley Alega, Class of 1950.
Here.
Dr. David Stewart Billingsley, Class of 1950.
Here.
Valeriano E. Cadena, Class of 1950.
Here.
Billy Lynn Couch, Class of 1950.
Here.
Marvin A. Daniel, Class of 1950.
Here.
Horace William Louise Enderly, Jr., Class of 1950.
Here.
Raymond Herbert Fritzie, Class of 1950.
Here.
Otto Lawrence Fuchs, Jr., Class of 1950.
Here.
Earl Ray Gordy, Class of 1950.
Here.
Ralph Herbert Honfield, Class of 1950.
Here.
Jesse W. Hill, Class of 1950.
Here.
Joseph Hosepian, Class of 1950.
Here.
Clifton John Unick, Class of 1950.
Here.
Frank Howard Kidd, Jr., Class of 1950.
Here.
Leland Wayne Kiker, Class of 1950.
Here.
Roy Travis King, Class of 1950.
Here.
William H. Louis, Jr., Class of 1950.
Here.
Jimmy Horace Morrow, class of 1950.
Here.
Ira W. Moss, class of 1950.
Here.
Daniel Peter Pollock, class of 1950.
Here.
Wilbur Lamar Rice, class of 1950.
Here.
Adolph G. Seelke, Jr., class of 1950.
Here.
John G. Sesmelis, class of 1950.
Here.
Bob Walker, class of 1950.
Here.
Dr. Mike A. Atkinson, class of 1951.
Here.
Jack Wilton Brinker, class of 1951.
Here.
Carol Addison Davis, class 1951.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Louis Eugene Engelbrecht, class of 1951.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Billy Joe Frizzell, class of 1951.
Here.
Robert Earl Hill, class of 1951.
Here.
Dr. Albert L. Herman, class of 1951.
Here.
Dr. George Gilbert McGee, class of 1951.
Here.
Charles Brooks McGowan, Jr., class of 1951.
Here.
John Robert Morgan, class of 1951.
Here.
Frederick Dale Mueller, class of 1951.
Here.
Roy David Nance, class of 1951.
Here.
Harry Sidney Rucker, Jr., class of 1951.
Here.
Mortimer M. Sullivan, class of 1951.
Here.
M. Frank Thurman, class of 1951.
Here.
Emery J. Trees, Jr., class of 1951.
Here.
Charlie P. Briggs III, class of 1952.
Here.
Alvy C. Burkhalter, Jr., class of 1952.
Here.
William Charles Bybee, class of 1952.
Here.
Thomas W. Carlisle, class of 1952.
Here.
Joseph R. Crowley, class of 1952.
Here.
Donald O. Dees, class of 1952.
Here.
Billy Joe Drawn, class of 1952.
Here.
Albert Lee Furness, class of 1952.
Here.
Albert Sidney Goodloe, class of 1952.
Here.
William Allen Kyle, Jr., class of 1952.
Here.
Dr. Paul Foster Law, class of 1952.
Here.
Benny Joe Matusek, class of 1952.
Here.
Sam Frederick Moses, class of 1952.
Here.
James Durward Selman, Jr., class of 1952.
Here.
Grady Stephen Skaggs, class of 1952.
Here.
Francis Frederick Spreen, Jr., class of 1952.
Here.
Worthy Ray Warnick, class of 1952.
Here.
John F. Waters, class of 1952.
Here.
Dr. William B. Whitmer, class of 1952.
Here.
Paul Robert Woollett, class of 1952.
Here.
Robert Donald Ash, class of 1953.
Here.
Billy Ralph Bates, class of 1953.
Here.
Dr. Charles C. Bates, class of 1953.
Here.
James Donald Beaver, class of 1953.
Here.
Arno Becker, class of 1953.
Here.
John B. Bell, Jr., class of 1953.
Here.
Otto Dale Fishgrabe, class of 1953.
Here.
Charles Alton Grantham, class of 1953.
Here.
Hyman Lee Harvard, class of 1953.
Here.
Edward Milton Hinson, class of 1953.
Here.
Victor Hines, class of 1953.
Here.
Paul Jones, class of 1953.
Here.
Jim Keblinger, class of 1953.
Here.
Dr. Patrick H. LeBlanc, class of 1953.
Here.
Dr. James Rod Martin, class of 1953.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Maurice Wayne Miller, class of 1953.
Here.
Kenneth Warren Monroe, class of 1953.
Here.
Perry J. Shepard, class of 1953.
Here.
Willard C. Scholler, Jr., class of 1953.
Here.
Charles Renfro Sloan, class of 1953.
Here.
John Gilbert Bomba, class of 1954.
Here.
Charles Maxwell Broder, class of 1954.
Here.
Carol B. Carnes, class of 1954.
Here.
John Ross Campbell, class of 1954.
Here.
Rondell Garland Crawford, class of 1954.
Here.
William E. Dark, class of 1954.
Here.
Rolando G. Dominguez, class of 1954.
Here.
Joe Albert Gawry, class of 1954.
Here.
Lee Roy Honfeld, class of 1954.
Here.
James P. Harris III, class of 1954.
Here.
Larry W. Hoffman, class of 1954.
Here.
Dorrance O. Hovland, class of 1954.
Here.
Wesley E. Johnson, class of 1954.
Here.
Donald Fry Jordan, Jr., class of 1954.
Here.
Bill Khalil, class of 1954.
Here.
Jimmy Clovis Nail, Jr., class of 1954.
Here.
Dr. W. Frank Norvell, class of 1954.
Here.
Carol Wynn Phillips, class of 1954.
Here.
Sherwin B. Rubin, class of 1954.
Here.
Robert B. Schwartz, Jr., class of 1954.
Here.
Thomas Joseph Skrabonic, class of 1954.
Here.
Dr. James Marshall Srigley, class of 1954.
Here.
Dale James Topperwine, class of 1954.
Here.
Howell Frank Vineyard, class of 1954.
Here.
Ronald L. Averett, class of 1955.
Here.
William Robert Barnes, class of 1955.
Here.
Ambrose Bernard Booble, Jr., class of 1955.
Here.
L. Howard Calloway II, class of 1955.
Here.
Thomas Meller Campbell, Sr., class of 1955.
Here.
Richard Thomas Chamberlain, Sr., class of 1955.
Here.
John Bruce Chapman, class of 1955.
Here.
Charles Andrew Davis, class of 1955.
Here.
Dr. Frank Allen Davis, class of 1955.
Here.
John Paul DeWald, class of 1955.
Here.
Dr. Gerald Cope Drew, class of 1955.
Here.
Robert Allen Easley, Jr., class of 1955.
Here.
Hervey Wallace Eversberg, class of 1955.
Here.
Harry Perkins Gaydon, Jr., class of 1955.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Alton Jack Hendrick, class of 1955.
Here.
Arthur A. Herwald, class of 1955.
Here.
Kenneth Gale Killian, class of 1955.
Here.
Dr. Wallace Lee Klebb, class of 1955.
Here.
Frederick I. Koning, class of 1955.
Here.
Harold Mandel, class of 1955.
Here.
William Richard McCaslin, class of 1955.
Here.
Bird H. Menard, Jr., class of 1955.
Here.
James E. Mitchell, class of 1955.
Here.
Dr. John E. Oliver, Jr., class of 1955.
Here.
Joe Louis Portavant, class of 1955.
Here.
Orrin C. Buddy Remmers, class of 1955.
Here.
Allen Hugh Allen Smith, class of 1955.
Here.
Joseph Robert Snodgrass, class of 1955.
Here.
Roy Ernest Strain, class of 1955. Marvin Paul Tate, class of 1955.
Here.
Dr. Charles C. Wong, class of 1955.
Here.
Dr. Carl Price Wiedenbach, class of 1955.
Here.
Daniel Patrick Wheat, Jr., class of 1955.
Here.
Dr. Craig L. Wiegand, class of 1955.
Here.
Thomas Hugh Yates, Jr., class of 1955.
Here.
Robert M. Zama, class of 1955.
Here.
Ronnie G. Bradley, class of 1956.
Here.
William Leroy Campbell, class of 1956.
Here.
John Ford Channing, class of 1956.
Here.
James Alton Collins, class of 1956.
Here.
Dr. James Stanley Crabb, class of 1956.
Here.
Richard Kenneth Decker, class of 1956.
Here.
Frank Joseph Durda III, class of 1956.
Here.
William R. Evans, class of 1956.
Here.
Elbert B. Gray, class of 1956.
Here.
James Ernest Jones, class of 1956.
Here.
Samuel Walter Kiker, class of 1956.
Here.
Colonel George Anthony LaHood, class of 1956.
Here.
Wayne E. Leverkuhn, class of 1956.
Here.
Jerry Carl Lonon Sr., class of 1956.
Here.
Prentice M. Milam Jr., class of 1956.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Jose G. Pena, class of 1956.
Here.
William H. Schrader, Jr., class of 1956.
Here.
Robert William Sears, class of 1956.
Here.
Colonel Colin Andrew Smith, class of 1956.
Here.
William Neil Thiessen, class of 1956.
Here.
David Hazelwood Vandervoort, class of 1956.
Here.
Elton Irving Wade, class of 1956.
Here.
Edgar Charles Walton, Jr., class of 1956.
Here.
Burton Leroy Young, class of 1956.
Here.
Dr. Thomas W. Adair III, class of 1956.
Here.
George Theodore Alexander, class of 1957.
Here.
Paul Baird Beckman, class of 1957.
Here.
Colonel Ernest B. Bew, Jr., class of 1957.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Jerry Bruce Coleman, class of 1957.
Here.
Dr. George W. Cox, class of 1957.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Melvin Martin Driscoll, class of 1957.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Robin W. Edwards, class of 1957.
Here.
Henry Estes, class of 1957.
Here.
Dr. Carlton Frank Hazelwood Sr., class of 1957.
Here.
Robert L. Isaacs, class of 1957.
Here.
Charles Robert Keith, class of 1957.
Here.
Marvin Fred Kolinek, Jr., class of 1957.
Here.
Dr. Billy James Lilly, class of 1957.
Here.
Dr. Carl Marshall McGee, class of 1957.
Here.
Gene L. McMichael, class of 1957.
Here.
David Y. Meisenbach, class of 1957.
Here.
George Howard Miller, class of 1957.
Here.
Joe K. Moore, class of 1957.
Here.
Dick Morton, class of 1957.
Here.
Frank A. Otupelek, class of 1957.
Here.
Michael C. Steindorf, Jr., class of 1957.
Here.
Raymond A. Van Eaton, Jr., class of 1957.
Here.
Harold Bailey Warnick, Jr., class of 1957.
Here.
Dr. Willis Keith Webb, class of 1957.
Here.
Major Donald R. West, class of 1957.
Here.
Byron Reynolds Wilkinson, class of 1957.
Here.
Glenn Ray Wilson, class of 1957.
Here.
Spencer Wayne Adamic, class of 1958.
Here.
Benjamin Douglas Agnor, class of 1958.
Here.
James W. Ans, class of 1958.
Here.
H. Grady Ash, Jr., class of 1958.
Here.
Bobby Jarrell Biddick, class of 1958.
Here.
Dr. Blake Warren Blakewood, class of 1958.
Here.
Jack Lee Brown, class of 1958.
Here.
Colonel Joe L. Byrd, class of 1958.
Here.
Samuel J. Campese, class of 1958.
Here.
Gerald Kirby Dale, class of 1958.
Here.
Gary D. Fletcher, Sr., class of 1958.
Here.
Thomas Edward Giles, class of 1958.
Here.
Dr. Michael R. Gill, class of 1958.
Here.
Victor F. Lavinka, class of 1958.
Here.
Jerry Lee Holmes, class of 1958.
Here.
William L. Inman, class of 1958.
Here.
William W. James Sr., class of 1958.
Here.
Lonnie R. Jameson, class of 1958.
Here.
Alfred Kirsch Jr., class of 1958.
Here.
Gerald Allen Kramer, class of 1958.
Here.
Dr. Lewis L. Martin, class of 1958.
Here.
John Henry Mayberry, class of 1958.
Here.
John C. Mayfield Jr., class of 1958.
Here.
Bobby Jean Miller, class of 1958.
Here.
Gail E. Moore, class of 1958.
Here.
Kenneth Carl Morgan, class of 1958.
Here.
Dudley L. Morris Jr., class of 1958.
Here.
Captain James Frank Knuckles, class of 1958.
Here.
John W. Ochterbeck, class of 1958.
Here.
James Edmund Owen, class of 1958.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Raymond L. Parker, class of 1958.
Here.
Thomas Felton Priestley, class of 1958.
Here.
Bobby Frank Reeves, class of 1958.
Here.
Robert James Saldivar, class of 1958.
Here.
Jesse D. Sanduscoy, class of 1958.
Here.
Thomas Roger Shanley, class of 1958.
Here.
Colonel George T. Shepard, class of 1958.
Here.
George Edwin Sherwood, class of 1958.
Here.
Robert Thomas Shurtleff, class of 1958.
Here.
Dennis R. Stipe, class of 1958.
Here.
Louis Cushing Stipp, class of 1958.
Here.
Robert Harry Stittler, Jr., class of 1958.
Here.
Stoney Milton Stubbs, Jr., class of 1958.
Here.
George L. Svatek, class of 1958.
Here.
Gary Edward Thomas, class of 1958.
Here.
Dr. Charles Thomas Tucker III, class of 1958.
Here.
John M. Vinson, class of 1958.
Here.
Jean Arthur White, class of 1958.
Here.
Donald Everett Woodard, class of 1958.
Here.
Charles James Ashley, Sr., class of 1959.
Here.
David W. Balke, class of 1959.
Here.
Paul Robert Ball, class of 1959.
Here.
Colonel David Henry Beck, class of 1959.
Here.
Leonard Christopher Benedict, class of 1959.
Here.
Archa Donald Branham, class of 1959.
Here.
Silas Abner Bryan, Jr., class of 1959.
Here.
Robert Newton Kane, class of 1959.
Here.
Winston Blanton Clark, Jr., class of 1959.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Walker R. Craig, class of 1959.
Here.
Malcolm Wayne Crawford, class of 1959.
Here.
Rodolfo Davila, Sr., class of 1959.
Here.
Billy Don Davis, class of 1959.
Here.
Roy Eugene Davis, class of 1959.
Here.
James D. Debrecht, class of 1959.
Here.
Travis Monroe Fleming, Jr., class of 1959.
Here.
Dr. Davis Lee Ford, class of 1959.
Here.
William Franklin Gibson, class of 1959.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Robert Louis Greatzel, class of 1959.
Here.
Curtis Virgil Hart, class of 1959.
Here.
Alfred Taylor Hearn, Jr., class of 1959.
Here.
Gary Norris Harrington, class of 1959.
Here.
Homer Hale Hershey, class of 1959.
Here.
Colonel Carlos Wayne Hickman, class of 1959.
Here.
Jerry Allen Horn, class of 1959.
Here.
Thomas Orrin Howell, class of 1959.
Here.
Robert Frederick Hunter, class of 1959.
Here.
John Williams Hutchins, class of 1959.
Here.
George Leslie Herbert King, Jr., class of 1959.
Here.
Elmer Emerson Kunkel, class of 1959.
Here.
Ronald Ike Lyons, class of 1959.
Here.
Carl Parker McCord, class of 1959.
Here.
D. Gale McNutt, class of 1959.
Here.
Walter Alfred Meller, Jr., class of 1959.
Here.
David Allen Newman, class of 1959.
Here.
M. Bookman Peters, class of 1959.
Here.
Larry Jean Pearson, class of 1959.
Here.
Bernard Pazowski, class of 1959.
Here.
James Everett Roby, class of 1959.
Here.
James Stanley Roper, class of 1959.
Here.
Warren R. Simmons, class of 1959.
Here.
Aubrey Milton Smith, class of 1959.
Here.
James Harold Smith, class of 1959.
Here.
John Gregory Stark, class of 1959.
Here.
Billy Hope Thompson, class of 1959.
Here.
Ross Ellis Truesdale, Jr., class of 1959.
Here.
Thomas Franklin Urbanowski, class of 1959.
Here.
Louis Morris Zimnick, class of 1959.
Here.
John Huntley Alderman, class of 1960.
Here.
Dr. Billy Joe Barfield, class of 1960.
Here.
John Melvin Ballou, class of 1960.
Here.
Reverend C. David Crabtree II, class of 1960.
Here.
James Edward Kerbo, class of 1960.
Here.
John Darrell Dalby, class of 1960.
Here.
Richard Dale Dalton, class of 1960.
Here.
Eldon Earl DeLand, Jr., class of 1960.
Here.
James Michael Donovan, class of 1960.
Here.
Billy Jack Garner, class of 1960.
Here.
Trinidad Perales Garza, class of 1960.
Here.
William B. Griffith, class of 1960.
Here.
Richard D. Higginbotham, class of 1960.
Here.
Owen L. Hill, Jr., class of 1960.
Here.
Henry Carroll Holder, class of 1960.
Here.
Don Vincent Ingram, class of 1960.
Here.
Don J. Lenore, class of 1960.
Here.
Gary R. Lilly, class of 1960.
Here.
Dr. Lee Leon Lowry, Jr., class of 1960.
Here.
Captain John H. Matthews III, class of 1960.
Here.
James Ora McLaughlin, class 1960.
Here.
Joseph Underwood Munson, Jr., class of 1960.
Here.
Richard Charles Ostinelli, class of 1960.
Here.
Lawrence J. Palmer, class of 1960.
Here.
William Ansel Pruitt III, class of 1960.
Here.
The Honorable Jack Morris Raines, class of 1960.
Here.
Dr. John Charles Rieger, class of 1960.
Here.
Lieutenant David Than Richburg, Sr., class of 1960.
Here.
David R. Rogerson, class of 1960.
Here.
Paul G. Rogerson, class of 1960.
Here.
Perry J. Schwitzky, Jr., class of 1960.
Here.
Roland Morris Searcy, Jr., class of 1960.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel George R. Shields, class of 1960.
Here.
Craig Eugene Trotman, class of 1960.
Here.
Glenn A. Williams, Jr., class of 1960.
Here.
G. Norman Wilson, class of 1960.
Here.
Hugh Porter Anderson, class of 1961.
Here.
Dr. Arthur J. Bain, class of 1961.
Here.
Gary Dean Bateman, Sr., class of 1961.
Here.
Robert F. Bosey, Jr., class of 1961.
Here.
Dr. James Andrew Carpenter, Jr., class of 1961.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Frank William Kreitz, class of 1961.
Here.
Edward L. DeLagaza, class of 1961.
Here.
Gail L. Finch, class of 1961.
Here.
Dickie D. Fox, class of 1951.
Here.
George S. Hamilton, class of 1961.
Here.
Gary Joe Hammer, class of 1961.
Here.
Richard Benjamin Hickerson, Jr., class of 1961.
Here.
Raul Hinojosa, Jr., class of 1961.
Here.
Robert J. Joubert, class of 1961.
Here.
Jimmy Reginald King, class of 1961.
Here.
Edward H. Morby, Jr., class of 1961.
Here.
Dr. Pat Orman Reardon, class of 1961.
Here.
Dr. Tommy Eugene Sanford, class of 1961.
Here.
Helmuth Charles Stover, Jr., class of 1961.
Here.
William R. Walker, class of 1961.
Here.
Don Wanyura, class of 1961.
Here.
Colonel Willis Nelson Ward, class of 1961.
Here.
Dr. B. Michael Abel, class of 1962.
Here.
Dr. Herman R. Adams, class of 1962.
Here.
Robert Dodd Bates, class of 1962.
Here.
Malcolm Craig Brewer, class of 1962.
Here.
Charles Irwin Burley, class of 1962.
Here.
James Wesley Cosby, class of 1962.
Here.
Dr. Jerry Marvin DeHay, class of 1962.
Here.
Ronald Lee Durbin, class of 1962.
Here.
Gilbert Williams Ellis, class of 1962.
Here.
Kent Gordon Ellis, class of 1962.
Here.
Robert Rockwood Evans, class of 1962.
Here.
Commander Lowell Douglas Phelps, class of 1962.
Here.
Colonel David Gilbert Halm, class of 1962.
Here.
John Wesley Ham, class of 1962.
Here.
David F. Hopkins, Jr., class of 1962.
Here.
Dr. Kenneth Earl DeRose, class of 1962.
Here.
Kenneth J.B. Joyce, class of 1962.
Here.
Wayne Franklin Liska, class of 1962.
Here.
John McKenney, class of 1962.
Here.
Raymond Edgar Mitchell, class of 1962.
Here.
Simon Walter Nichols, Jr., class of 1962.
Here.
Robert C. Perkins, class of 1962.
Here.
William Freeman Pry II, class of 1962.
Here.
Alvin Lee Ringo, class of 1962.
Here.
James Earl Rudder, Jr., class of 1962.
Here.
Dr. James Merrill Ruman, class of 1962.
Here.
George Eckerd Schwab, class of 1962.
Here.
John D. Van D. Pute, class of 1962.
Here.
Jerry R. Waring, class of 1962.
Here.
Torrance B. Wilson III, class of 1962.
Here.
Terry Lynn Adams, class of 1963.
Here.
Garland Paul Andrews, class of 1963.
Here.
James Roger Bass, class of 1963.
Here.
Henry John Berg, class of 1963.
Here.
Eugene L. Butler, class of 1963.
Here.
Johnny Patrick Cockburn, class of 1963.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Michael Shields George, class of 1963.
Here.
Philip W. Grant, class of 1963.
Here.
Ronald M. Hall, class of 1963.
Here.
Charles Ray King, class of 1963.
Here.
Joe Larry Locke, class of 1963.
Here.
Lacey Byron Lowry, class of 1963.
Here.
Dr. Robert Neal Mathis, class of 1963.
Here.
Harold C. Maxwell, class of 1963.
Here.
Joseph Claude Merritt, class of 1963.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel David Lewis Myers, class of 1963.
Here.
Reverend William Dale Nix, Jr., class of 1963.
Here.
Leopoldo F. Perez, class of 1963.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Morrill Ross, Jr., class of 1963.
Here.
Charles Richard Schuneman, class of 1963.
Here.
Tommy Joe Schulze, class of 1963.
Here.
Eddie J. Ward, class of 1963.
Here.
Curtis L. Allen, Jr., class of 1964.
Here.
Richard Edward Bartoskowitz, class of 1964.
Here.
Dr. Scott Williams Beckworth, class of 1964.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel David Michael Booth, class of 1964.
Here.
Herbert Eugene Brown, class of 1964.
Here.
Dr. Tommy Lauren Bullard, class of 1964.
Here.
John Edmund Burke, class of 1964.
Here.
Walter L. Kosman III, class of 1964.
Here.
Dr. James Willard Craig, Jr., 1964.
Here.
Frank R. Crepito, class of 1964.
Here.
William Carl Gonzalez, class of 1964.
Here.
John Allen Herron, class of 1964.
Here.
David William Johnson, class of 1964.
Here.
Colonel Melvin Hayden Johnson, Jr., class of 1964.
Here.
William Francis Lawler III, class of 1964.
Here.
Dr. Walter Wallace Lowe, class of 1964.
Here.
Robert N. McGuire, Jr., class of 1964.
Here.
Dr. Samuel Anthony Monticello, class of 1964.
Here.
Leonard C. Moore, class of 1964.
Here.
Alan Wayne Myers, class of 1964.
Here.
Mervyn Dansby Peters, class of 1964.
Here.
Michael Jerome Pisatola, class of 1964.
Here.
Ralph D. Roberts, class of 1964.
Here.
Charles W. Robinson, class of 1964.
Here.
Robert Lee Rogers, class of 1964.
Here.
John Robert Smith, class of 1964.
Here.
Richard Wayne Armstrong, class of 1965.
Here.
Woodrow L. Basicia, Jr., class of 1965.
Here.
Major Dale Eldon Barnes, class of 1965.
Here.
Colonel John C. Becca, Jr., class of 1965.
Here.
Joseph Bailey Benz, class of 1965.
Here.
Dr. Richard Leo Bennett, class of 1965.
Here.
Dr. Johnny C. Bowling, class of 1965.
Here.
Terry L. Bradburn, class of 1965.
Here.
Robert Peter Brooks, class of 1965.
Here.
Gordon Gale Bruzzard, class of 1965.
Here.
Wayne L. Corman, class of 1965.
Here.
Graham L. Davis, class of 1965.
Here.
Jack Arnold Dennison, class of 1965.
Here.
Dr. Elwood Roy Hart, class of 1965.
Here.
Robert Michael Hawkins, class of 1965.
Here.
John Lawrence Hottard, class of 1965.
Here.
Colonel J. Joseph Janes, class of 1965.
Here.
Shirley Mae Kramer, class of 1965.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Arthur C. Kyle, class of 1965.
Here.
Chester O. Martin, class of 1965.
Here.
Edward Hubert Massey, class of 1965.
Here.
Edison Rodrigo Palacio, class of 1965.
Here.
Lowry Blaine Picard, class of 1965.
Here.
Franklin Moore Rager, class of 1965.
Here.
Captain Donald Kent Robinson, class of 1965.
Here.
John August Schmidt, class of 1965.
Here.
Dr. Joseph H. Schmidt, Jr., class of 1965.
Here.
William Terrell Sherman, class of 1965.
Here.
J. D. Smith, class of 1965.
Here.
Rayford Raglan Stripling, class of 1965.
Here.
Dr. Kenneth L. Ward, class of 1965.
Here.
Joseph Paul Went, class of 1965.
Here.
Glendon D. Wombley, class of 1965.
Here.
Robert
Arthur Zajac, class of 1965.
Here.
Todd Fielding Beeler, class of 1965.
Here.
Gary Edwin Caffey, class of 1966.
Here.
Robert E. Collins, Jr., class of 1966.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Larry D. Crocker, class of 1966.
Here.
James Howard Dunks, class of 1966.
Here.
Duncan E. Duval, Jr., class of 1966.
Here.
James Rogers Imanis, class of 1966.
Here.
James K. Falconer, class of 1966.
Here.
Thomas Morgan Ferguson, Jr., class of 1966.
Here.
Colonel Bruce L. Fowler, class of 1966.
Here.
Albert Lee Horilika, class of 1966.
Here.
Jody George Hoyak, class of 1966.
Here.
Dr. John Joseph Humbert, class of 1966.
Here.
Hugh Ned Jones, class of 1966.
Here.
Louis J. Kinkle, class of 1966.
Here.
Dr. Frank Lee Kohler, class of 1966.
Here.
Gilberto Madrigal, class of 1966.
Here.
Dr. Ronald K. Moore, class of 1966.
Here.
Charles D. Pullman, class of 1966.
Here.
Dr. Larry Joel Ringer, class of 1966.
Here.
Louis Sabirik, Jr., class of 1966.
Here.
Neil Truitt Thompson, class of 1966.
Here.
Dr. Edward Uvacek, Jr., class of 1966.
Here.
Stanley John Weathers, class of 1966.
Here.
Melvin Fred Ziegebon, Jr., class of 1966.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Benny Earl Aycock, class of 1967.
Here.
Deborah D. Barros, class of 1967.
Here.
Charles William Caldwell, class of 1967.
Here.
Dr. Michael A. Champ, class of 1967.
Here.
Carol D. Claycamp, class of 1967.
Here.
Dr. John Macklin Cook III, class of 1967.
Here.
Dr. Travis Dale Dean, class of 1967.
Here.
Brad Clinton Dickens, Jr., class of 1967.
Here.
Melvin M. Henry, class of 1967.
Here.
Dr. Alvin Duval Jett III, class of 1967.
Here.
Ronald L. Lindsay, class of 1967.
Here.
Alan R. Miller, class of 1967.
Here.
Eugene Pierce, Jr., class of 1967.
Here.
Franklin H. Roberts, Jr., class of 1967.
Here.
Dr. C.R. Salmon, Jr., class of 1967.
Here.
Raymond B. Shuck, Jr., class of 1967.
Here.
Leroy Sterling, class of 1967.
Here.
Robert B. Strange, class of 1967.
Here.
Dr. William Pat Bill Swan, class of 1967.
Here.
Tommy A. Tillery, class of 1967. Anthony Martin Werkel, class of 1967.
Here.
The Spirit of Muster by Joey Dean, class of 2005. For all the Ags who have gone before me, who gave all they had for all I now enjoy, our spirit I faithfully carry forward and try to leave a better world behind. Softly call the muster Ags and raise your candlelight. Gone but not forgotten, let 'em hear that old farmer's fight. Today my voice is yours as I call here. I stand for fallen heroes, for those I hold most dear.
Dr. Connie Ray Arnold, class of 1968.
Here.
Reverend James A. Basinger, class of 1968.
Here.
Captain Michael Randall Beggs, class of 1968.
Here.
Dr. Alan Lee Briscoe, class of 1968.
Here.
Ronald Wayne Clark, class of 1968.
Here.
Colonel Donovan Russell Cumby, class of 1968.
Here.
Dr. James Paul Glasson, class of 1968.
Here.
Dr. William Jackson Grimes, class of 1968.
Here.
James Robert Hawthorne, class of 1968.
Here.
Major Glenn Dale Hecox, class of 1968.
Here.
William Joe Hopfer, class of 1968.
Here.
James D. Kazmierski, class of 1968.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Michael Lee Lanning, class of 1968.
Here.
Dr. Clem Edward Malone, class of 1968.
Here.
John J. May, class of 1968.
Here.
William Michael Norris, class of 1968.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel David P. Parkin, class of 1968.
Here.
William J. Pell, class of 1968.
Here.
Dr. James W. Perkins, class of 1968.
Here.
Colonel Thomas Watson Shin, class of 1968.
Here.
Captain Harry M. Stover, Jr., class of 1968.
Here.
Colonel David Lee Thomas, class of 1968.
Here.
Thomas Eugene Upton, class of 1968.
Here.
J. Arthur Vanderveer, II, class of 1968.
Here.
Gary Wayne Webb, class of 1968.
Here.
Second Lieutenant Michael Byron White, class of 1968.
Here.
Harvey Ross Aschenbeck, class of 1969.
Here.
Colonel Robert G. Baggett, class of 1969.
Here.
John Vance Brack, class of 1969.
Here.
Milan Alphonse Charles Busek, class of 1969.
Here.
Robert James Muskie, class of 1969.
Here.
Porfirio Fernandez Diaz, class of 1969.
Here.
Robert O. Emerson, class of 1969.
Here.
Captain Ronald W. Forrester, class of 1969.
Here.
Gary McDowell Griffin, class of 1969.
Here.
Dr. William V. Hamilton, class of 1969.
Here.
Captain Clyde Eugene Herzog, class of 1969.
Here.
Thomas Alonzo Hillen, class of 1969.
Here.
Michael R. Yodite, class of 1969.
Here.
Dr. Jesse J. Jones, class of 1969.
Here.
Stephen A. Lillard IV, class of 1969.
Here.
Thomas J. McWhorter, class of 1969.
Here.
Eric Clark Miller, class of 1969.
Here.
Marcelino Oliveras Jr., class of 1969.
Here.
Richard Lee Ray, class of 1969.
Here.
Russell Brewster Ricu, class of 1969.
Here.
James William Ressler, class of 1969.
Here.
Dr. David W. Roseberg Jr., class of 1969.
Here.
Colonel James L. Socklaben, class of 1969.
Here.
Lawrence Charles Shilhab, Jr., class of 1969.
Here.
Ronald Davis Smith, class of 1969.
Here.
John Wayne Todd, class of 1969.
Here.
John Wayne Vitapool, class of 1969.
Here.
H. Patricia Worthen, class of 1969.
Here.
Dr. John Michael Wayner, class of 1969.
Here.
Donald Lee Williams, class of 1969.
Here.
John Vincent Wright, Jr., class of 1969.
Here.
William Wayne Zamanek, class of 1969.
Here.
Dr. John S. Bain II, class of 1970. Randy Ellis Blanks, class of 1970.
Here.
Leslie Edward Cashman, class of 1970.
Here.
Michael Wayne Daniel, class of 1970.
Here.
Dr. Joseph M. Joe Detling, class of 1970.
Here.
Dr. Arthur Philip DuPont, class of 1970.
Here.
Shannon Owen Ezel, class of 1970.
Here.
Nathan Otto Finke, class of 1970.
Here.
Michael Otts Ford, class of 1970.
Here.
Larry Alfred Gertz, class of 1970.
Here.
Ronald W. Gooch, class of 1970.
Here.
Richard Leo Green, class of 1970.
Here.
Orville Lester Grunden, class of 1970.
Here.
Doris W. Kinsing, class of 1970.
Here.
Dr. Gerald Don Kilgore, class of 1970.
Here.
Dr. David Franklin Lovett, class of 1970.
Here.
John Ryan Martin, class of 1970.
Here.
Dr. Norman Lee McCoy, class of 1970.
Here.
Michael Henry Memmert, class of 1970.
Here.
Howard Victor Moore, class of 1970.
Here.
First Lieutenant Russell Allen Morris, class of 1970.
Here.
George Carl Nichols, class of 1970.
Here.
Bernard Joseph O'Neill III, class of 1970.
Here.
Bernard J. Rapp, class of 1970.
Here.
Jack Neil Sanford, class of 1970.
Here.
Elizabeth P. Lynn Scott, class of 1970.
Here.
Patrick Roy Stotzenberger, class of 1970.
Here.
Dr. Guy Lynn Welch, class of 1970.
Here.
Larry Bruce Wells, class of 1970.
Here.
Johnny B. Whiteley III, class of 1970.
Here.
Johnny Earl Whitting, class of 1970.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Morgan G. Williams, class of 1970.
Here.
William Pryor Womack, class of 1970.
Here.
Dietrich W. Bangs, class of 1971.
Here.
Stephen Starrett Bodine, class of 1971.
Here.
William Barry Bolton, class of 1971.
Here.
Raymond Allen Cowley, class of 1971.
Here.
Jonathan Joseph Dalzell, class of 1971.
Here.
Nancy Robinson Grossenbacher, class of 1971.
Here.
Craig Allen Jacobson, class of 1971.
Here.
David J. Jirovec, class of 1971.
Here.
Terry Lee Keener, class of 1971.
Here.
Harold Franklin Lambert, Jr., class of 1971.
Here.
Neil Eugene Little, class of 1971.
Here.
Olin Ray Long, class of 1971.
Here.
Richard E. Mallitz, class of 1971.
Here.
Dr. Bobby J. Pittman, class of 1971.
Here.
James Benford Pope, Jr., class of 1971.
Here.
Herlinda Rodriguez, class of 1971.
Here.
Charles Edwin Russell, class of 1971.
Here.
James Randolph Shursith, class of 1971.
Here.
Charles Robert Smoley, class of 1971.
Here.
Fred J. Tedford, class of 1971.
Here.
Thomas Keith Terry, class of 1971.
Here.
Paul Michael Thompson, class of 1971.
Here.
Randall David Horton, class of 1971.
Here.
Richard A. Zepeda, class of 1971.
Here.
Dr. James Lloyd Alexander, class of 1972.
Here.
Richard C. Allen, class of 1972.
Here.
Lupe Barone, class of 1972.
Here.
Jimmy Carol Bareski, Jr., class of 1972.
Here.
Mary Margaret Bird, class of 1972.
Here.
James Philip Burdorf, class of 1972.
Here.
James Henry Carter, class of 1972.
Here.
Charles Wesley Cassidy, class of 1972.
Here.
Jesse D. Chinsky, Jr., class of 1972.
Here.
Benoit Culpepper, class of 1972.
Here.
Gary Wayne Davis, class of 1972.
Here.
Richard Eugene Davis, class of 1972.
Here.
Eric Robert Deneve, class of 1972.
Here.
Michael Thomas Dudley, class of 1972.
Here.
Jackie Floyd Easley, class of 1972.
Here.
Winston Earl Frost, Jr., class of 1972.
Here.
Dr. David Carter Fuchshuber, class of 1972.
Here.
Darrell Wayne Gunn, class of 1972.
Here.
Gregory Wilder Holman, class of 1972.
Here.
John Andrew Carnegie, class of 1972.
Here.
Robert J. Launders, class of 1972.
Here.
Charles Raymond McMurray, II, class of 1972.
Here.
Betty S. Nash, class of 1972.
Here.
Harold Douglas Neal, class of 1972.
Here.
Gary Stanley Robertson, class of 1972.
Here.
Michael Bryant Shirley, class of 1972.
Here.
John David Sperry, class of 1972.
Here.
Alton Ray Westbury, class of 1972.
Here.
Gary Don Wheat, class of 1972.
Here.
Francisco Sandoval Yabarbo, class of 1972.
Here.
Philip Carl Banks, class of 1973.
Here.
Harold J. Binkowski, Jr., class of 1973.
Here.
Reverend John W. Danny, class of 1973.
Here.
Freddie Lee Dahmy, class of 1973.
Here.
Wayne E. Devon, class of 1973.
Here.
Warren D. Ellison, class of 1973.
Here.
Leonard Price Ferguson, class of 1973.
Here.
Carol Sue Gathings, class of 1973.
Here.
Alvin A. Goldap, Jr., class of 1973.
Here.
John Young Harbison, class of 1973.
Here.
John Lamar Harper, class of 1973.
Here.
Wood Edgar Herod, Sr., class of 1973.
Here.
Daniel Arthur Johnson, class of 1973.
Here.
Michael David Kalina, class of 1973.
Here.
David Michael Little, class of 1973.
Here.
Dr. Chung Chen Mao, class of 1973.
Here.
Louis C. Martinez, class of 1973.
Here.
David McKnight, class of 1973.
Here.
Dr. Thomas E. Newton, class of 1973.
Here.
Clyde R. Pfeiffer, class of 1973.
Here.
Michael Joseph Reinwald, class of 1973.
Here.
Lee Morris Roberts, class of 1973.
Here.
Dr. Robert A. Rupp, class of 1973.
Here.
Wade Allen Smith, class of 1973.
Here.
Ernest C. Threadgill, III, class of 1973.
Here.
Dr. Chung Ye Sang, class of 1973.
Here.
William Patrick Wiley, class of 1973.
Here.
Michael Wayne Williams, class of 1973.
Here.
Gary Bruce Wiltrout, class of 1973.
Here.
Randy Gale Abernathy, class of 1974.
Here.
Anton Frank Tony Botts, class of 1974.
Here.
Stephen Everett Chapman, class of 1974.
Here.
Randall Craig Colwick, class of 1974.
Here.
Doug Currier, class of 74.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Mark Allen Delaney, class of 1974.
Here.
Wayne Allen Enderlee, class of 1974.
Here.
Colonel Christopher Thomas Franklin, class of 1974.
Here.
Dr. Ruth Bagnall Gonzalez, class of 1974.
Here.
Catherine R. Goodbar, class of 1974.
Here.
James Allen Greenwood, class of 1974.
Here.
Joe Michael Hogue, class of 1974.
Here.
James Robert Macy, class of 1974.
Here.
Marcy Charisse Brown McCartney, class of 1974.
Here.
Donald Patrick McGuire, class of 1974.
Here.
Michael Scott McWilliams, class of 1974.
Here.
John Kenneth Means, class of 1974.
Here.
Homer Ferguson Mills, class of 1974.
Here.
Dr. Dennis Michael Motz, class of 1974.
Here.
David Joe Moore, class of 1974.
Here.
Robert Lindsay Nathan, Jr., class of 1974.
Here.
William Snowden Nichols III, class of 1974.
Here.
Danny R. Norris, class of 1974.
Here.
Billy J. Parks, class of 1974.
Here.
Homer Samuel Schertz, class of 1974.
Here.
Stephen Charles Skady, class of 1974.
Here.
Larry Noble Smith, class of 1974.
Here.
Ronald Lamar Sparks, class of 1974.
Here.
Michael Dwayne Vader, class of 1974.
Here.
Stephen O. Williams, class of 1974.
Here.
Andrew P. Kovar, class of 1975.
Here.
Stephen G. Creedon, class of 1975.
Here.
Pauline Dominy, class of 1975.
Here.
Stanley D. Egger, class of 1975.
Here.
Claude P. Elsom III, class of 1975.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Newton Estes, class of 1975.
Here.
David Francis Fleming, class of 1975.
Here.
Michael J. Harmon, class of 1975.
Here.
Donna Lou Harrison, class of 1975.
Here.
Louis Calloway Hangst, Jr., class of 1975.
Here.
Hubert Alois Hermes, Jr., class of 1975.
Here.
Thomas Mark Horton, class of 1975.
Here.
Stanley Ray Howard, class of 1975.
Here.
Charles Lee Kerr, class of 1975.
Here.
Kenneth Wayne Kohler, class of 1975.
Here.
James M. McCoy, class of 1975.
Here.
John Bernard Painter, class of 1975.
Here.
William W. Pape, class of 1975.
Here.
Captain Stephen Wayne Prendergast, class of 1975.
Here.
Thomas Allen Rogers, Jr., class of 1975.
Here.
Martha Janice C. Sills, class of 1975.
Here.
Dexter James Svetlik, class of 1975.
Here.
Barbara Jean Whitaker, class of 1975.
Here.
Dr. Donald Edward Clark, class of 1976.
Here.
Cynthia Lee Davis, class of 1976.
Here.
David L. Dawson, class of 1976.
Here.
Travis Wayne Garrett, class of 1976.
Here.
David Browning Hildebrand, class of 1976.
Here.
Dr. James Roy Holcomb III, class of 1976.
Here.
Dr. Gary Floyd Lackey, class of 1976.
Here.
John C. Leeper, class of 1976.
Here.
Glenda Marie Linhoff, class of 1976.
Here.
Dr. Joseph Michael Livengood, class of 1976.
Here.
Dr. Robert E. Miller, class of 1976.
Here.
Sharon Paula Moore, class of 1976.
Here.
John C. Murray, class of 1976.
Here.
Dr. Kenneth R. Petty, class of 1976.
Here.
Leah A. Preator, class of 1976.
Here.
Mary A. Roach, class of 1976.
Here.
Wanda Bucks-Kemper Roberts, class of 1976.
Here.
Dr. Douglas Arthur Sanford, class of 1976.
Here.
Anthony E. Scherler, class of 1976.
Here.
Helen Elizabeth Schiffenhauer, class of 1976.
Here.
Dr. Timothy D. Thies, class of 1976.
Here.
Michael R. Uristy, class of 1976.
Here.
Nancy L. Ward Pruitt, class of 1976.
Here.
Leslie E. Campbell, class of 1977.
Here.
David Lynn Carr, class of 1977.
Here.
Andrew Urban Simpsky, class of 1977.
Here.
Dr. James T. Davis, class of 1977.
Here.
Ann DeWitt Rohr, class of 1977. Donis P. Ellis II, class of 1977.
Here.
Matthew D. Harrington, class of 1977.
Here.
Stephen M. Hayden, class of 1977.
Here.
Sharon K. Hefner, class of 1977.
Here.
Jane Ellen Hicks Acker, class of 1977.
Here.
Cheryl Lynn Hightower, class of 1977.
Here.
Roy Lewis Holcomb, class of 1977.
Here.
William Carl Morgan, Jr., class of 1977.
Here.
David E. Newcomb, class of 1977.
Here.
Dr. John E. Pippin, class of 1977.
Here.
Stuart E. Rogers, class of 1977.
Here.
Dr. Tyrus Schroeder, class of 1977.
Here.
Ann Howard Smith, class of 1977.
Here.
Dr. Susan Lee Thomas, class of 1977.
Here.
Collie R. Williams III, class of 1977.
Here.
David Lynn Albert, class of 1978.
Here.
Marie Annette Canning, class of 1978.
Here.
Dale Gordon Carlisle, class of 1978.
Here.
Adrian Ruben Correa, class of 1978.
Here.
David P. Cohen, class of 1978.
Here.
Dr. Barbara J. Cruz, class of 1978.
Here.
Melissa Catherine Foyle, class of 1978.
Here.
Janet Marie Hees, class of 1978.
Here.
Dr. Richard D. Hembry, Jr., class of 1978.
Here.
Edmundo O. Hernandez, Sr., class of 1978.
Here.
Linda Horn High, class of 1978.
Here.
William C. Huji, class of 1978.
Here.
Kathleen A. Jennings Mills, class of 1978.
Here.
Timothy Robert Rafferty, class of 1978.
Here.
Lisa Ricard Roll, class of 1978.
Here.
Luis B. Salazar, Jr., class of 1978.
Here.
Dr. Douglas Allen Ward, class of 1978.
Here.
Stephen Frank Brooks, class of 1979.
Here.
John Allen Burns, class of 1979.
Here.
Samuel Lindsay Eubanks, class of 1979.
Here.
Commander Stephen Paul Fulton, class of 1979.
Here.
Kimberly McDonald Gibson, class of 1979.
Here.
Jeffrey Glenn Gleason, class of 1979.
Here.
Becky Hartman Gregory, class of 1979.
Here.
Linda Lowry Halter, class of 1979.
Here.
Gregory Wayne Herwald, class of 1979.
Here.
Harvey Wayne Yan, class of 1979.
Here.
Carla J. Lacey, class of 1979.
Here.
Tony G. Lafferty, class of 1979.
Here.
Ernest Edward Lashua, Jr., class of 1979.
Here.
John J. Lawrence, class of 1979.
Here.
Philip George Martinez, Jr., class of 1979.
Here.
David Bruce McFarland, class of 1979.
Here.
Alan L. Messenger, class of 1979.
Here.
Michael F. Pearson, class of 1979.
Here.
Dr. Charles S. Perkins, class of 1979.
Here.
Ray Todd Vanderpool, class of 1979.
Here.
Dr. Sid T. Womack, class of 1979.
Here.
Dr. Warren Lamar Beard, class of 1980.
Here.
Franklin D. Buckner, class of 1980.
Here.
Lieutenant Colonel Edward Howell Burris, class of 1980.
Here.
Stephen William DeGroot, class of 1980.
Here.
Dr. Mary W. Edwards, class of 1980.
Here.
Donald Arthur Galvin, class of 1980.
Here.
Lucy and Miles Harris, class of 1980.
Here.
Donald Eugene Jeffers, class of 1980.
Here.
Robert Bradshaw Mapes, class of 1980.
Here.
Ray Vernon Miles, class of 1980.
Here.
Dr. Patrick K. Moore, class of 1980.
Here.
Charles Walker Pickering, Jr., class of 1980.
Here.
Randall Don Vinson, class of 1980.
Here.
Kenneth Wayne Von Gonten, class of 1980.
Here.
Connie Marie Walker, class of 1980.
Here.
Danny R. Boynton, class of 1981.
Here.
John Preston Brooks, class of 1981.
Here.
Ronald Ray Davis, class of 1981.
Here.
Mary Sue DeMoy, class of 1981.
Here.
Jeffrey Dean Eilert, class of 1981.
Here.
David Zeldin Einsel, class of 1981.
Here.
Colonel Jesse C. Flock, the third, class of 1981.
Here.
William Frank Hannes, class of 1981.
Here.
Dr. Robert W. Hayes, class of 1981.
Here.
Kathy Barry Huddleston, class of 1981.
Here.
Michael Lewis Humphrey, class of 1981.
Here.
Mary S. Jenkins, class of 1981.
Here.
Dr. Steve Lewis Carmen, Jr., class of 1981.
Here.
Mark Wayne Mitch, class of 1981.
Here.
Robert G. Wrights, class of 1981.
Here.
Eugene A. Schaefers, Jr., class of 1981.
Here.
Stephen Michael Shugart, class of 1981.
Here.
Dr. Elizabeth L. Smith, class of 1981.
Here.
Gary Scott Smith, class of 1981.
Here.
Lynn Ann Verbrugge, class of 1981.
Here.
Stanley Joseph Whitfield, class of 1981.
Here.
Sharon Marie Young, class of 1981.
Here.
Dr. David Wayne Allard, class of 1982.
Here.
Ronald James Baumel, class of 1982.
Here.
Karen M. Bell, class of 1982.
Here.
Laura Jean Butler, class of 1982.
Here.
Peggy Lynn Callahan, class of 1982.
Here.
Della Mae Colburn, class of 1982.
Here.
Cheryl Fisher Deborah, class of 1982.
Here.
Dr. Patricia Anastasia Hainsley, class of 1982.
Here.
Dr. Ted F. Haith, class of 1982.
Here.
Sherry Rose McGallagher McWillie, class of 1982.
Here.
Margaret McKenzie, class of 1982.
Here.
Zane Keith Melanson, class of 1982.
Here.
Charles Frank Morris, class of 1982.
Here.
Dr. D. Robert Okopny, class of 1982.
Here.
Douglas Eugene Oliver, Jr., class of 1982.
Here.
Allison Kelt Salazar, class of 1982.
Here.
Warren Timothy Sexton, class of 1982.
Here.
Dorothy Ann Slane Ozturk, class of 1982.
Here.
Dr. David Andrew Benzini, class of 1983.
Here.
Diane Marie Beely, class of 1983.
Here.
Dwayne Albert Day, class of 1983.
Here.
Gary Allen Finkelman, class of 1983.
Here.
James William Harris, class of 1983. Dr. Stephen Lloyd Harris, class of 1983.
Here.
Steve W. Henley, class of 1983.
Here.
John M. Holt, class of 1983.
Here.
Patrick Kevin Howell, class of 1983.
Here.
Terry G. Jones, class of 1983.
Here.
Gregory Paul Kiefer, class of 1983.
Here.
Wendy Lane Kubina, class of 1983.
Here.
Leanne Moore, class of 1983.
Here.
Dr. Andrew John Rettenmeyer, class of 1983.
Here.
Fred Allen Schultz, Jr., class of 1983.
Here.
Heston D. Thomas II, class of 1983.
Here.
Kelly Ann Westbrook, class of 1983.
Here.
Stand for Me by Patricia Bell Millsap, class of 1979. Will you stand for me at muster when I leave this earthly plane? Will you answer for me clearly when they call out my name? Will you speak of me a time or two when Aggies gather round, especially at a football game at Kyle Field's hallowed ground? If you can do these things for me, I'll know I'm still a part of the school and friends I leave behind that filled this Aggie heart.
Glenn H. Almquist, class of 1984.
Here.
Douglas Eugene Anderson, class of 1984.
Here.
James Brian Baker, class of 1984.
Here.
Colonel Gregory V. Barrick, class of 1984.
Here.
J. Paul Bond, class of 1984.
Here.
James Allen Cox, class of 1984.
Here.
Randall E. DeMall, class of 1984.
Here.
Ronald Kent Lahr, class of 1984.
Here.
Kirk John Lawrence, class of 1984.
Here.
Dr. Merle Philip Martin, class of 1984.
Here.
Mark W. Olson, class of 1984.
Here.
Harold Gene Ratliff, class of 1984.
Here.
Susanna R. Summerlin, class of 1984.
Here.
Julia Hunault Uribe Trevino, class of 1984.
Here.
Michael Jerome Vernon, class of 1984.
Here.
Captain Albert Wu, class of 1984.
Here.
Rainey D. Young, class of 1984.
Here.
Michael Sean Beck, class of 1985.
Here.
Gregory Keith Crane, class of 1985.
Here.
Wesley Brandon Dalton, class of 1985.
Here.
Robert A. Estremo, class of 1985.
Here.
Richard Burt Ford, class of 1985.
Here.
Carl Hager III, class of 1985.
Here.
Mary Grace Jones, class of 1985.
Here.
Helen Wyatt Keaton, class of 1985.
Here.
Rose M. Kennebrew, class of 1985.
Here.
Robert Cushman Kusi, class of 1985.
Here.
Robert K. Metzer, class of 1985.
Here.
Evelyn Jane Mobley, class of 1985.
Here.
Charles Marshall Scanlon, class of 1985.
Here.
Dr. Mary Elizabeth Say, class of 1985.
Here.
Burton Gerald Steitler, class of 1985.
Here.
Dr. Dorothy Ellen Williams, class of 1985.
Here.
James Kevin Ashby, class of 1986.
Here.
Kimberly A. Kajakob, class of 1986.
Here.
Archna Shanani, class of 1986.
Here.
Carlton Lewis Dane, class of 1986.
Here.
Forrest W. Davis, class of 1986.
Here.
Thomas Edward Frierson, class of 1986.
Here.
Curtis Wayne Hoffman, class of 1986.
Here.
Janet Marie Huseth, class of 1986.
Here.
William James Johnson, class of 1986.
Here.
Danny Keith Jones, class of 1986.
Here.
Christopher David Millard, class of 1986.
Here.
C. Stacy Powers, class of 1986.
Here.
Helen A. Shelton, class of 1986.
Here.
Mark Allen Stasel, class of 1986.
Here.
James Austin Tomlinson, Jr., class of 1986.
Here.
Tracy Lynn Abraham, class of 1987.
Here.
Captain Robert Edward Berry, class of 1987.
Here.
David W. Bowers, Jr., class of 1987.
Here.
Cha John Chang, class of 1987.
Here.
Craig R. Comer, class of 1987.
Here.
John Thomas Cooksey, class of 1987.
Here.
Shirley Watson Dunn, class of 1987.
Here.
Ronald W. Kokel, class of 1987.
Here.
John Martin Longoria, class of 1987.
Here.
Andrew H. Mays, class of 1987.
Here.
Fred A. Ferris III, class of 1987.
Here.
Mary N. Rogers, class of 1987.
Here.
Dr. David Murray Shearer, class of 1987.
Here.
Tobias Gus Seltzer, class of 1987.
Here.
Joe Ann Strite, class of 1987.
Here.
Tammy Frances Word, class of 1987.
Here.
Dr. Craig Casper Bowden, class of 1988.
Here.
Kenneth David Cunningham, class of 1988.
Here.
Veronica R. Hart, class of 1988.
Here.
Angela Christine Harold, class of 1988.
Here.
Mark Andrus Heslip, class of 1988.
Here.
Alan Frank Lawler, class of 1988.
Here.
Mark C. Lowe, class of 1988.
Here.
Paige Marie Merkel, class of 1988.
Here.
Jack Walter Patrick, class of 1988.
Here.
J. Wasson Roth, class of 1988.
Here.
George Michael Smesnick, the second, class of 1988.
Here.
James Rockwell Tomlin, class of 1988.
Here.
Edward Vernon Wood, the third, class of 1988.
Here.
Jason Collier Badscard, class of 1989.
Here.
Stacy Lynn Bowerman, class of 1989.
Here.
William David Brewster, class of 1989.
Here.
Ronald Glenn Bullard, Jr., class of 1989.
Here.
Bruce Halsby Crocombe, class of 1989.
Here.
Hudson Washington Griffith, the third, class of 1989.
Here.
Sherry C. Jenkins, class of 1989.
Here.
Stephen Allen McCauley, class of 1989.
Here.
William Thomas Pohl, class of 1989.
Here.
Brian Joseph Pyle, class of 1989.
Here.
Catherine M. Short, class of 1989.
Here.
Victor William Slowick, class of 1989.
Here.
Dr. Jerry L. Wickman, class of 1989.
Here.
Claudia Lee Antis, class of 1990.
Here.
Terry Ann Barron, class of 1990.
Here.
Dr. Joseph W. Goy, class of 1990.
Here.
Michael Richard Lumen, class of 1990.
Here.
Kimberly Ann Montz, class of 1990.
Here.
Terrence Todd Price, class of 1990.
Here.
Gregory Charles Campbell, class of 1991.
Here.
Jonna Beth Dennis, class of 1991.
Here.
Heather Diane Glenn Irwin, class of 1991.
Here.
Brent W. Hawley, class of 1991.
Here.
Jennifer Humes, class of 1991.
Here.
Angela Lynn Jablonski, class of 1991.
Here.
William Lawrence Keeley, class of 1991.
Here.
David Ray Mott, class of 1991.
Here.
Kimberly J. Nelson Harrison, class of 1991.
Here.
James William Schroeder, class of 1991.
Here.
Russell Joseph Screehot, class of 1991.
Here.
Beverly J. Toon, class of 1991.
Here.
Clarence Wendell Wilkerson III, class of 1991.
Here.
Robert E. Armbruster, class of 1992.
Here.
Darrell Page Baker, class of 1992.
Here.
Richard J. Butson, class of 1992.
Here.
Daniel Lewis Clark, class of 1992.
Here.
Christopher Lewis Cook, class of 1992.
Here.
Terry A. Davidson Hackett, class of 1992.
Here.
Darrell W. Harrell, class of 1992.
Here.
Carolyn Sylvie Ivy, class of 1992.
Here.
Carl H. Kim, class of 1992.
Here.
Troy Dean Lindblatt, class of 1992.
Here.
Christopher Peter Mayo, class of 1992.
Here.
Teresa Ann McCollum, class of 1992.
Here.
Reverend James R. Murgia, class of 1992.
Here.
Stacy Lynn Rue, class of 1992.
Here.
Laura Sturzing, class of 1992.
Here.
Kimberly Ann Sullivan, class of 1992.
Here.
Michael John Thomason, class of 1992.
Here.
Joanne Ramirez Toland, class of 1992.
Here.
Pablo Julian Vargas, Jr., class of 1992.
Here.
Stanley G. Wygand, class of 1992.
Here.
Andrew Melvin Winkler, class of 1992.
Here.
Jill S. Anthony, class of 1993.
Here.
Salvatore F. Caserta, Jr., class of 1993.
Here.
Shay Marie Fisher, class of 1993.
Here.
Brian Paul Furick, class of 1993.
Here.
Ben F. Harrison IV, class of 1993.
Here.
Peter Winston Hitchcock, class of 1993.
Here.
Janet Eileen Lemonek, class of 1993.
Here.
Patrick Ray McCarroll, class of 1993.
Here.
Dr. Albert Thompson Perry II, class of 1993.
Here.
Anthony Edward Preto, class of 1993.
Here.
Kendra Elaine Rozick, class of 1993.
Here.
Christopher Lynn Sanders, class of 1993.
Here.
Toby Leon Terry, class of 1993.
Here.
Michael Scott Allen, class of 1994.
Here.
James Douglas Cathy, class of 1994.
Here.
Paige M. Davis, class of 1994.
Here.
Carrie J. Durham, class of 1994.
Here.
Michael J. Foster, class of 1994.
Here.
Tara Christine Jones, Class of 1994.
Here.
Jennifer C. McCarroll, Class of 1994.
Here.
Edmund Sidney Moreland, Jr., Class of 1994.
Here.
Casey Peterson, Class of 1994.
Here.
Dr. Michael Glenn Rossman, Class of 1994.
Here.
Dale James Rabowski, Class of 1995.
Here.
Thomas Kane Lennox, Class of 1995.
Here.
John S. Mercer, Class of 1995.
Here.
Dr. Catherine Skipper Reinke, Class of 1995.
Here.
Stephen Michael Sims, Class of 1995.
Here.
Bruce Edward Young, Class of 1995.
Here.
Jason Kent Zachary, Class of 1995.
Here.
Eduardo Hector Cortez, Class of 1996.
Here.
Thomas Wayne Kroom, Class of 1996.
Here.
Amy A. Delaney, Class of 1996.
Here.
Cash Krenhop, Class of 1996.
Here.
Robert M. Lee, Class of 1996.
Here.
Walter Earl Marquardt, III, Class of 1996.
Here.
Seth Thomas Pendarvis, Class of 1996.
Here.
Calandra Lee Ritter, Class of 1996.
Here.
Brett Matthew Safarik, Class of 1996.
Here.
Charlotte McBride Schramm, Class of 1996.
Here.
Raymond Lee Simonson, Class of 1996.
Here.
Kevin Wayne Smith, Class of 1996.
Here.
Jorge Anderson, Class of 1997.
Here.
Stephanie Hale Cribley, Class of 1997.
Here.
Dr. Brian Porter Curry, Class of 1997.
Here.
Richard Casey Cole, Class of 1997.
Here.
Diane Montgomery, Class of 1997.
Here.
Wesley Hyatt Swift, Class of 1997.
Here.
Frederick David Thornberry, Class of 1997.
Here.
Charlindra Turner Brown, Class of 1998.
Here.
Lori Ann Dalrymple, Class of 1998.
Here.
Stacy David Doss, Class of 1998.
Here.
Angela K. Durr, Class of 1998.
Here.
Felix Matthew Fisher, Class of 1998.
Here.
Clayton Pruitt Francisco, Class of 1998.
Here.
Michelle R. Kirk, Class of 1998.
Here.
Dr. Michael Robert Logan, Class of 1998.
Here.
Sam Hayes Merritt III, Class of 1998.
Here.
Dr. James Edward Montgomery III, Class of 1998.
Here.
Chase McLean Murphy, Class of 1998.
Here.
Amy E. Raspberry, Class of 1998.
Here.
Dr. Nathan Arthur Vermidal, Class of 1998.
Here.
Brad Allen Best, Class of 1999.
Here.
Damian Eric Johnson, Class of 1999.
Here.
Tracy K. McAllister, Class of 1999.
Here.
Jason Michael Seymour, Class of 1999.
Here.
Umberto Ruben Trevino, Class of 1999.
Here.
Joseph Carl Biles, Class of 2000.
Here.
Angela Elizabeth Cassetta, Class of 2000.
Here.
Marianne Cusimano, Class of 2000.
Here.
Dylan Wade Taylor, Class of 2000.
Here.
Lindy Sanders Wagner, Class of 2000.
Here.
Dr. Christopher Allen Bailey, Class of 2001.
Here.
Corey Thomas Kress, Class of 2001.
Here.
Dr. Constance Marie Lehman, Class of 2001.
Here.
Amanda Lee Moeller, Class of 2001.
Here.
Brigadier General Thomas Gene Smith, Class of 2001.
Here.
Caleb Woodward Williams, Class of 2001.
Here.
Amanda Faith Georgiadis, class of 2002.
Here. Here.
Michael Lawrence Gregorosh, class of 2002.
Here.
Jordan E. Lewis, class of 2002.
Here. Here.
Crystal Ray Schiebler, class of 2002.
Here.
Matthew Lee Thigpen, class of 2002.
Here. Here.
Stephen Abram Velasquez, class of 2002.
Here. Here.
Brett Arthur Hitchcock, class of 2003.
Here. Here.
Christopher Lewis Kepchinsky, class of 2003.
Here. Here.
Edward J. McDonald, class of 2003.
Here. Here.
Kimberly Renee DeWally, class of 2004.
Here. Here.
Dr. Maricela Perez Gonzalez, class of 2004.
Here.
Dane Allen Plumley, class of 2004.
Here. Here.
Stephen James Bickings, class of 2005.
Here. Here.
Casey Nicole Davis, class of 2005.
Here. Here.
Emily Marshall Davis, class of 2005.
Here. Here.
Mark Lee Dutton, class of 2005.
Here. Here.
Russell Lee Kennedy, class of 2005.
Here. Here.
Dr. Chelsea Page McAnally, class of 2005.
Here. Here.
Ryan Andrew Neer, class of 2005.
Here.
Jonathan Michael Parr, class of 2005.
Here. Here.
Casey Bradford Pickard, class of 2005.
Here.
Dr. Carolina Isabel Restrepo, class of 2005.
Here.
Dr. Heath Colin Smith, class of 2005.
Here. Here.
Dr. Ellen Thompson, class of 2005.
Here.
Ronald William Brandt, class of 2006.
Here. Here.
Justin Edward Branner, class of 2006.
Here. Here.
Laurel Leslie Hadaway, class of 2006.
Here.
Dr. James Walker Todd, class of 2006.
Here.
Michael Arthur O'Brien, class of 2007.
Here.
Victoria Denise McKenzie, class of 2007.
Here.
Charles Elliott Staten, class of 2007.
Here.
Lindsay Knowles Wu, class of 2007.
Here.
Christopher Michael West, class of 2007.
Here.
Aaron Jacinto Azcaraga, class of 2008.
Here.
Adam Armin Friedley, class of 2008.
Here.
Rhett Joseph Tidwell, class of 2008.
Here.
Frank Alexander Torres, class of 2008.
Here.
James Turner Midkiff, class of 2009.
Here.
Zachary Mills Scalf, class of 2009.
Here.
Abigail Sue Goring, class of 2010.
Here.
Dr. Ebony Levon Lahing, class of 2010.
Here.
Dan Yates Loki, Jr., class of 2010.
Here.
Jacqueline Elise Savoy, class of 2010.
Here.
Jacob Wernup, class of 2010.
Here.
Austin Bennett Alexander, class of 2011.
Here.
Mark Ryan Godsey, class of 2011.
Here.
Matthew Ryan Meadows, class of 2011.
Here.
Joshua Richard Trouty, class of 2011.
Here.
Jesse Andrew Barrera, class of 2012.
Here.
Eddie James Brown Jr., class of 2012.
Here.
Bradley Cullen Idem, class of 2012.
Here.
William Aaron George Webster, class of 2012.
Here.
Zaya Abbas Hyder, class of 2013.
Here.
Monica Michelle Jones, class of 2013.
Here.
Sukmani Kaur Kara, class of 2013.
Here.
Scott Austin Seeley, class of 2013.
Here.
Brianna Sean Lewis, class of 2014.
Here.
William Russell DeGrow, class of 2015.
Here.
Margaret Leona McGee, class of 2015.
Here.
Connor Megaro Reichold, class of 2015.
Here.
Adrian Rose Strub, class of 2015.
Here.
Victoria Lynn Fowler Anderson, class of 2016.
Here.
Joseph Barry Cunningham, class of 2016.
Here.
Madeline Chia Kelly, class of 2016.
Here.
Joseph Anthony Baron Nunez, class of 2016.
Here.
Lauren Christina Short, class of 2016.
Here.
Nicholas Eduardo Garza, class of 2017.
Here.
Samuel Reed James, class of 2017.
Here.
Clay Holden Jones, class of 2017.
Here.
Thomas William McKean, class of 2017.
Here.
Royce Stephen Moore, class of 2017.
Here.
Courtney Mackenzie Garcia, class of 2018.
Here.
Jeffrey Thomas Clayton Hill, class of 2018.
Here.
David Christian Kaiser, class of 2018.
Here.
Andrew Parks Fancher, class of 2019.
Here.
James David Pearson, class of 2019.
Here.
Julia Ann Grassley, class of 2020.
Here.
Armen Javad Mirazimi, class of 2020.
Here.
James Nicholas Sloan, class of 2020.
Here.
Jacob Taylor Baker, class of 2021.
Here.
Dr. Parajiti Ebi Karafaga Bakawe, class of 2021.
Here.
James Waylon Burrow, class of 2021.
Here.
Christian Alonzo Harrow, class of 2021.
Here.
Christina Renee Ruzek, class of 2021.
Here.
Matthew Corey Kreis, class of 2021.
Here.
Cody Wayne Lambert, class of 2021.
Here.
Dr. Abhinav Shari Vestava, class of 2021.
Here.
Erica Nicole Anderson, class of 2022.
Here.
Jet Thomas Creighton, class of 2022.
Here.
John Edward Schoenfield III, class of 2022.
Here.
Misty Germain, class of 2023.
Here.
Madison Taylor Dovey Hall, class of 2023.
Here.
William Harrison Hall, class of 2023.
Here.
Dylan Kanoa Miyamoto, class of 2023.
Here.
Joel Jose Vasquez, class of 2023.
Here.
Lorena Maria Caceres, class of 2024.
Here.
Logan Cale Jones, class of 2024.
Here.
Orion James Patrick Mitchell, class of 2024.
Here.
Stephen Oluwafemi Odorende, class of 2024.
Here.
Christian Duval Owen, class of 2024.
Here.
Kylie Elizabeth Pearsall, class of 2024.
Here.
Nate Calloway, class of 2025.
Here.
Samuel H.R. Jackson, class of 2025.
Here.
Gregory Angus McFarland, class of 2025.
Here.
Drake Barrett Hardison, class of 2026.
Here.
Andrew Thomas Hengis, class of 2026.
Here.
Luke Anthony Morse, class of 2027.
Here.
Brittany Romero, class of 2027.
Here.
The next segment of the worldwide roll call for the absent includes Aggies whose deaths were reported to the association after April 16th, followed by honored faculty, staff, and friends of Texas A&M.
Jackson Lee Rayleigh, class of 1951.
Here.
Robert B. Brown, class of 1953.
Here.
Dr. John Thomas Lamar McNew, Jr., class of 1953.
Here.
Colonel John Rudolph V.S., class of 1953.
Here.
Alfred Olson Hilvers, class of 1956.
Here.
Clifford Gwynn Thompson, class of 1960.
Here.
David N. Lupo, class of 1961.
Here.
John W. Johnson, class of 1962.
Here.
Robert O. Dial, class of 1964.
Here.
Captain Ira R. Abbott III, class of 1968.
Here.
Dr. David M. Elliott, class of 1968.
Here.
Robert Edward Tapia, class of 1970.
Here.
Ronald D. Crone, class of 1971.
Here.
Stephen D. Ruff, class of 1976.
Here.
Kimberly Troy Jackson, class of 1978.
Here.
William D. Davis, class of 1983.
Here.
Melissa A. Perez, class of 1987.
Here.
Yvonne E. Adams, class of 1991.
Here.
Jonathan M. Ross, class of 1996.
Here.
Jeremy W. Barnes, class of 1999.
Here.
Kristen Gabrielle Mitchell, class of 2006.
Here.
Penny Lynn Black, class of 2019.
Here.
Tracy Trukmai Tran, class of 2021.
Here.
Dorothy Elise Andrews.
Here.
William Barnes.
Here.
Mary Lou Ben.
Here.
Dr. Lawrence Bravenick.
Here.
Nancy Crouch.
Here.
Gerald K. Ebanks.
Here.
George Edge.
Here.
Peggy Jean Erickson.
Here.
Dr. Richard Floyd.
Here.
Gwen A. Ford.
Here.
Dr. Mark Fawcett.
Here.
Dr. Raymond Francis Siss.
Here.
Coral Gabaldon.
Here.
Dorothy Hopkins.
Here.
Judith Ann Janes.
Here.
Dr. Craig Callendorf.
Here.
Dr. Danny Kleinfelter.
Here.
Jinglei Lee.
Here.
Dr. Ronald Martins.
Here.
Dr. Fowden Maxwell.
Here.
Julie Mayfield.
Here.
Clementine T. Ogden.
Here.
Dorothy H. Pustayovsky.
Here.
Dr. Michael Rozenik.
Here.
Dr. Edward Runge.
Here.
Dr. Gerald Wagner.
Here.
Dr. William Ward.
Here.
The Honorable Ben O. White.
Here.
Harriet G. Wolf.
Here.
Dr. James Womack.
Here.
Carl Marvin Applewhite, Jr.
Here.
The final segment of the worldwide roll call for the absent comprises corrections to some names that were called incorrectly or that were inadvertently omitted in the earlier reading of this roll.
William D. McMahon, class of 1940.
Here.
Joe P. Giddens, class of 1945.
Here.
Dr. Mike A. Atkinson, class of 1951.
Here.
Jack Wilton Bertner, class of 1951.
Here.
Dr. George Gilbert McBee, class of 1951.
Here.
Dr. Thomas W. Adair III, class of 1957.
Here.
James Ora McLaughlin, Jr., class of 1960.
Here.
Marcus Covington, Jr., class of 1961.
Here.
Dickie D. Fox, class of 1961.
Here.
Jimmy Reginald King, class of 1961.
Here.
Dr. Scott Williams Beckwith, class of 1964.
Here.
Dr. James Willard Craig, Jr., class of 1964.
Here.
Woodrow L. Bosica, Jr., class of 1965.
Here.
Glendon D. Womble, class of 1965.
Here.
Todd Fielding Beeler, class of 1966.
Here.
Louis J. Kinsel, Jr., class of 1966.
Here.
Gilberto Madrigal, class of 1966.
Here.
Melton M. Henry, class of 1967.
Here.
Elgene Pierce, Jr., class of 1967.
Here.
Captain Ronald Wayne Forrester, class of 1969.
Here.
Dr. John Michael Wayman, class of 1969.
Here.
Dr. Alfred C. Wayner, class of 1969.
Here.
Doug Currier, class of 1974.
Here.
Helen Elizabeth Schiffhauer, class of 1976.
Here.
Matthew David Harrington, class of 1977.
Here.
Dr. John E. Pippin, Jr., class of 1977.
Here.
Sherry Rose Gallagher McWillie, class of 1982.
Here.
James Austin Tomlinson, Jr., class of 1986.
Here.
Toby Leon Taylor, class of 1993.
Here.
Caleb Woodard Williams, class of 2001.
Here.
Dorothy Elsie Andrews.
Here.
In memoriam by Lieutenant Colonel David Harrigan, class of 1968. We stood a little taller, a little prouder then, when we heard the call of muster and the roll call just began. We stood there all together and wiped away the tears when our names were called out softly and we answered with a here. And so we've joined together with our brothers of the past to make our final resting place at Aggie Land our last. We take a toast to our brotherhood wherever they may roam. For us the trek is over. Aggie Land, we're coming home.
Howdy, I'm Scott Walker, class of 1990, Vice President of the Association of Former Students. My fellow Aggies, the 2024 Worldwide Muster Roll Call is now complete. On behalf of the Association of Former Students and the Worldwide Aggie Network, thank you for sharing this time with us today. We close this Worldwide Aggie Muster with a salute. We salute Texas A&M, the unique American institution that shaped each of us into the people we are and continues to shape us today. We salute countless Texas Aggies who give selflessly of their time and energy by volunteering to plan and host hundreds of Aggie musters around the world. And we salute each and every one of the Aggies we've lost this past year, the 1,324 family and friends whose names we called and for whom we proudly answered here, marking them forever present in our hearts on this Aggie Muster Day. The Worldwide Aggie Muster is dismissed until April 21st, 2025. Until then, I charge you each to remain firm in your loyalty to humanity and your country, and to keep warm in your hearts your affection for one another and for our beloved alma mater. May good fortune smile upon us until we meet again some other day. And until we do, may all of our lives be filled with the spirit of Aggie Land.
Some may boast of prowess bold, of the school they think so grand. But there's a spirit can ne'er be told, it's the spirit of Aggie Land. We are the Aggies are we, true to each other as Aggies can be. We've got to fight, boys, we've got to fight. We've got to fight for maroon and white. After they've boosted all the rest, then they will come and join the best. For we are the Aggies are we. We are from Texas A&M.